Welcome everybody to the final and last night of Platinum Travel's Inspirational Evenings. We are on night 8, having had 4 nights last week and 4 nights this week, and this week has all been about the USA, and we are finishing on such a high with the presentations that we have for you this evening. If you don't want to go to one of these 9 states by the time we finish this evening, then we haven't done our job. So we're looking forward to showcasing everything for you. I will introduce everybody that we have in a couple of moments. I'm just going to quickly run through why we're here this evening. Those of you that have been with us for the week will have seen this slide already, but just to quickly recap, Platinum Travel, we are experts in tailor-made holidays to the USA. So whether it's a fly drive or a 2-center or an RV holiday or a Scorcher tour, that's what we're all about. We've been working the niche holiday market for over 15 years now, and we're really passionate about tailor-making the perfect holiday for clients. Sometimes it's their first trip, sometimes it's their 20th trip, but it's always something that we are passionate about to show them something new. We have extensive knowledge of the US. We travel regularly there when we can, and we work very closely with the US tourist bodies and suppliers, both here in Ireland and in Europe, and also in the USA. We attend conferences regularly, and we do a lot of training in the office and in the destination when we can. And this is so that we can bring new product and new ideas to you all the time, because places are changing constantly. Finally, licensed and bonded by CAR. I've repeated this every single night since day one, and I will say it one last time tonight. CAR is the Commission for Aviation Regulation in Ireland. It's extremely important that when you book a holiday in Ireland, that you book it with a licensed and bonded travel agent or tour operator. This is for your protection and your safety, and it keeps you having peace of mind throughout the booking process and the travel process. Ideally, of course, we would love every booking to come to Platinum Travel, but we are very passionate about our industry, and we're a very close, tight-knit industry, and any booking for the industry is a booking for us all. So look in your local travel agent, look in your local county or wherever it is, but make sure they're licensed and bonded. And finally, we're passionate about the USA. If you haven't got that this week, then again, we're not doing our job. We love what we do, and no trip is impossible. So anything you need, just let us know. And moving on, there's such a broad choice of holidays. I'm not going to go into them all again, but you guys know from what we've said the last few nights exactly what's out there for you. So if it's a family, if it's a bucket list trip, a honeymoon, if you're going solo on a trip for the first time, or you want to be with a group, there's a holiday in the States for you. If you want to party all night long, if you want to be big open spaces, you want action adventure, there is something there for you. With Ireland, normally we have amazing lift coming from Dublin, nearly 200 direct flights a week coming from Dublin direct to the USA, all pre-clearing customs and immigration. So it's really seamless when you arrive in the destination that you're able to go on straight away to where you're staying, your hotel, your tour, whatever it is. So when travel comes back, we are very sure that all that lift is going to come back from Dublin and from Shannon, and we'll be able to avail of all those. And all the destinations we're going to this evening all have very good connections from Dublin. There is a direct flight to Atlanta, but there's also 2 great connections, or more than 2 great connections via the UK, but I will call out Nashville and New Orleans, particularly because those 2 new BA routes hopefully will be restarting, and you can avail of those. And sorry, a shout out to Dallas. While we're not showcasing Texas tonight, Dallas is great for coming from the other side, coming through Arkansas and all the way across. So, and also Charlotte. I'll think of them all now. Charlotte coming down from North Carolina. Duncan will kill me if I don't say Charlotte. So we've loads of flights anyway. So don't worry about getting to the destination. We can get you there. And we are loved by the Americans. They love hearing an Irish accent. They really want to chat to us. They really want to embrace us and give us their amazing hospitality. So let's go there and be welcomed. Again, just to remind you all, every type of holiday is there. If you want to fly drive yourself, go down a motorbike, RV, take it by train. You can see all the different modes of transport. If you want to fly internally or do a hot air balloon, whatever you want to do, you can do it in the States, and certainly in these 9 states that we're showcasing this evening. So have a think about what you'd like to do, and you can do a combination of them all, but it's just to keep an open mind and be inspired during the evening about how you want to travel. So now moving swiftly on from all of that, let's get started, because we have such a busy night and a very exciting night. And I'd like to welcome all our guests this evening and thank them so much for taking the time to join us. We couldn't do this without them, and they are brilliant to give up their time this evening. So I'll introduce them all one by one. They're probably not in exactly the order they're on your screen, but they're order on my screen. So we've Shannon Odom from South Carolina. Hey, Shannon. Then we've Viara Chalier, who's going to be looking after the Deep South, and she actually also looks after Kentucky. We have Amanda Peacock and Della Tully, both looking after Georgia this evening. And both Amanda and Shannon are actually coming to us from Georgia and South Carolina. So they'll be able to give us an insight about how things are over there. And then we have Duncan McCubbin, who is looking after North Carolina for us. And then we have Peter Hannaford, who's looking after Arkansas. There's Peter. And then we have Neil Jones, who's also looking after the Deep South, and he also looks after Louisiana as well. So I think I've covered everybody. And the Deep South, by the way, the guys will explain later, is 5 states in it. And then we have the 4 around it that we're focusing on as well. And then, of course, as always, we have the wonderful Paula, who works, myself and Paula work together. And she has been here all the time as well, doing all the questions and answers and chats. I really encourage you, please, please, please interact in the chat. Ask any question. If it's about the nicest beer, if it's about the biggest waterfall, it doesn't matter. Ask questions, chat, tell us your experiences. We want to know what your favorite thing was or what you're dreaming about doing. So this is all about inspiring each other and enjoying it. So do sit back and relax. So what we're going to do now is we are going to start with Duncan. Duncan's going to look after North Carolina and give us some information on that. And he's going to share his screen. And then we're going to do a couple of questions at the end. We're not going to do too many questions in between each presentation because we know we're putting a lot in, but there will be more opportunity at the end. So we'll do a couple of questions between each presentation. And then at the end, we'll do lots more. So don't worry if your question wasn't answered. We will give you another opportunity at the end to do that. And I'll let you share. We'll all turn off our cameras and mute. And Duncan, just remember to tick those 2 boxes at the bottom so the audio is okay. And we are good to go.
Okay, thanks, Kira. Thanks for the great introduction and for inviting us to be part of this tonight. Really looking forward to it. And as Kira said, any questions, put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer those. But I'm going to start and talk about North Carolina over the next sort of 6, 7, 8 minutes or so. And let's move on. So obviously, to give you an idea where North Carolina actually sits, it is obviously an East Coast state, sits directly above South Carolina, just below Virginia. But to give you a bit of an idea on perspective, our northernmost coastal region is about a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive from Washington, D.C. So, you know, a really great location for entering into the States. That said, you know, as Kira mentioned, we do have direct flights from Dublin to Charlotte. It's a seasonal service with American Airlines. There are direct flights also from London via out to Charlotte and to Raleigh. And then with all the other carriers, there's one-stop connections into various different parts of the state. So very well served and very easy to get to. As a state itself, we're not a huge state. We're actually 543 miles from the very furthest eastern point on our barrier islands over to the mountain range. But we are 3 very distinct regions. And what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is just give you an idea of what those regions have to offer. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to start in the mountains and work east back towards the coast. So the mountains, as I mentioned before, are the highest mountains on the east coast of America. These are the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Smokies, that whole sort of area there. And it is a very much a scenic part of the state. Great views wherever you go on the mountains. That particular highway you can see is the Blue Ridge Parkway. That runs for 252 miles through the state, and it does hug the contours of the mountain ranges. Viewpoints are great, but I would encourage people to use that a little bit and then hop off and use somewhere else and then join the Blue Ridge Parkway further down. The whole of the mountain range is great for anything outdoorsy. kayaking, mountain biking, walking. There's no light pollution for stargazing. Everything like that is fantastic. And the Blue Ridge Parkway ultimately takes you to the main mountain town that we have, which is a town called Asheville. Asheville's famous for a number of reasons, not least of which it's home to the Biltmore Estate, which you can see there in the bottom left-hand picture. That was built by Vanderbilt as a wedding present to his wife in the 1890s. Very French influenced and a very interesting story. He was a New Yorker paying New York wages down in North Carolina back in the 1890s. So very, very forward thinking. The top picture there on the left, that's Chimney Rock. That actually overlooks a lake called Lake Lorne. If any of you seen the film Dirty Dancing, that actually is where he did the lake lift scene and lifted her out of the water. And you can actually go to the Lake Lore Dirty Dancing Festival, where they actually reenact different scenes from the film. And also you can get your hair done and get clothes and dress up as though it was in the 50s. But aside from that, Asheville is a vibrant, fun city. Most number of Art Deco buildings outside of Miami South Beach, really great arts and crafts district. And in the downtown area, no chain stores, all independent retailers, which is great. Such a pleasant change. Best way to see Asheville is really with a Zoom tour. It's a hop on, hop off sort of comedy tour bus. Great fun, and they teach you a lot about the history of Asheville as well. If we move a little bit more to the Piedmont region, that's the central or flatlands area, traditionally where we used to grow grapes and hops for beer and alcohol. And then when Prohibition came in, it was changed, it became tobacco lands, and now it's drifting back to being a wine growing or grape growing area. The key cities in the Piedmont area are Charlotte, Raleigh, and Durham. While Charlotte is the largest city we have, and it's actually the biggest banking and finance city outside of New York, Raleigh is the state capital. But Charlotte's really interesting because it's a very modern, diverse city. There's a lot of modern architecture, but you can literally travel half a mile and you're in the old neighborhoods with some of the more bespoke little buildings, wooden buildings that are restaurants, where all the locals are going to eat and dine. So it's got a really good contrast and a good mix. That's a sort of shot of the Charlotte skyline to show you how cosmopolitan it does look. But it's home to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. NASCAR is a motor racing series, some of you may know, that started from Prohibition. So when alcohol was banned, the people would make the moonshine up in the mountains, would carry it into the cities. The revenue inspectors would try and catch them. And they played this cat and mouse game of souping up their cars. And then when they legalized alcohol, they had nothing to do, so they went racing. But you can learn all about the history at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And you can go out to Concord and do ride-arounds in a race car at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Charlotte also has an air museum, and the US Airways plane that landed on the river, that is actually now an exhibit at that museum. So it's a very interesting feature that they've got going on there. Raleigh, as I mentioned, is our state capital. Great food scene, more number of award-winning chefs in Raleigh than anywhere else in the States. So the food scene is really vibrant. One of my favorites is a place called Garland. You've an Indian lady called Shiti Kumar. She's taken sort of Southern food and doing it with an Asian Indian twist. And then when she's finished cooking for the day, she's got a nightclub upstairs and she goes and jams with her band. And it's just a great atmosphere, just something a bit quirky and a bit different. My other favorite city in that area is Durham. It sort of falls as Raleigh Durham, but Durham is a separate entity in its own right. It's where they used to process all the tobacco into cigarettes, but it's got a really great feel because those warehouses now have been regenerated into exhibition space, outdoor venues, shopping. It's just got a really nice feel. And if you want a really good experience in that area, Durham Bulls, fantastic game of baseball. Really does feel like you're in some local park with everybody at a game. Very, just a very cool thing to do. Really great atmosphere. If we move on to the coastal region, and I seem to be going through this really quick, but there's quite a lot to cover and not a lot of time, never is. Our coastal region is quite unique. The area circled in red is what's called the Outer Banks, and it is a string of barrier islands. And you can drive all the way down from sort of Sandling and Duck in the north, right the way down to Cape Hatteras, and then take the ferries all the way over and actually end up in a town called Wilmington, way down in the south part of the state. And it's just a really leisurely way to spend a day going from north to south without having to drive lots of miles, chill out on the ferry. It's just a really great way to do things. The coastal regions, very famous for a number of reasons. Most prominently will be the fact that the Wright brothers first did powered flight on the Outer Banks, and these are literally two gentlemen who made bicycles in the mid-states. They carried everything over to North Carolina, and they flew literally 6 feet and built up until it was twice the length of a football pitch. And if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't even be sat here tonight. You can also see the Spanish horses that roam wild on the beaches in the north and the south. These are descendants of the ones that swam ashore when the Spanish galleons were sunk off the coast of North Carolina. So there's a lot of history there as well with that, with Blackbeard the pirate. But it's all designated, so it's national seashore, so it carries national park status. So we have no high-rise buildings in that area at all. They're all sort of ground first, maybe a second floor, and that's really it. Moving on to Wilmington. Wilmington is an old maritime town in the south of the state, but it's also got this university, so it's got this young feel as well. And there's some great kayaking and water sports across the whole of the coastal region. Also in Wilmington, you've got USS North Carolina, which is a battleship open to the public, but there's also Screen Gem Studios, where Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill were filmed. And in fact, just some of the other things filmed across the state, and that gives you an idea there. Everything from the opening scenes of The Fugitive to Dirty Dancing, all the Nicholas Sparks movies. So loads of different things that you may not have realized have been filmed in North Carolina. We do have a handy reference guide called Project 543. The name comes because the state is 543 miles across. And what it does is it gives you a handy click-on guide as to all the things that you can see and do only in North Carolina. And it gives you sort of 20 words. It's enough to give you a flavour for what is out there and whether it's something that ticks your box. What I'm going to do now is just close the little video just to give you a flavour of the state. It's called First at Last.
Hear the waves?
Yeah. It's the first that stay with us. Your first kiss. Your first car.
I wonder if there's a waterfall up there.
The time you came in first place. These moments make our hearts race. Our eyes widen.
Anytime like, that's so cool.
Our hands sweat. The lines of our smiles deepen in our cheeks.
I'm gonna live on the beach forever!
These firsts shape us and forever set the bar for all other moments. The magic of experiencing something for the very first time never gets old. Come, experience firsts that last in North Carolina.
So thank you for your time. I'll now hand back to Kira and for the next presentation. Thank you.
That's brilliant, Duncan. Thanks a million. And I know you could talk forever about North Carolina. There's so much there, and it's such a big, vast state, like from mountains to coast and all of that. But I won't keep harping on because I know we're watching the time. But I have two quick questions, Paula. Do you have any questions there? And I can do mine, or I can do them later.
I've one here from Neil just asking how long are the Outer Banks?
Oh, well, that was kind of my question, but somebody had asked me earlier on. So
The Outer Banks, yeah.
The whole coastal region is 332 miles long. Okay. So from the very northern tip right down to the furthest point south of Wilmington is 332 miles. The Outer Banks is probably about 160, I think.
Brilliant. My question was about driving down the Outer Banks and how would you get a car down there, and also is it a good idea for homes? And obviously I know the answer to that, but you might quickly answer that there in regards to rental homes in the Outer Banks and kind of as a beach family destination.
Yes. So first of all, yes, you can drive all the way down the Barrier Islands, and you can take ferries that take you ultimately further down towards the Wilmington area. Those ferries, one is 40 minutes and it's free. The other one is about an hour and a half, but it's $15 for a car and 4 people. So it's really, really cost effective. Okay. As for the accommodation on the Outer Banks, then for me, the best way is the apartments or the houses, whatever you want. And there is everything literally from a 2-bed condo, where you walk downstairs, you walk through a gate, you walk past the pool and over the dunes onto the beach, or we've got 18 beds, 17 bathroom homes with cinema rooms and
that's not big enough. That's not big enough.
Which is where where I think I'd rather be right now, given the forecast for this weekend.
So there's every type of home, and just to remind people that it's a very big state. So we have that horsepower itinerary that comes right the way across, but people aren't to underestimate the distances that you need to travel. So if you are going to do, flying to Charlotte, don't think you can just do a quick stopover and see it. There's, you need to allow a good bit of time and enjoy the state. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, brilliant. Have you any more there, Paula, or do you want to keep them in case we come to them at the end?
I don't mind. I've just 2 more quick ones.
First.
Sarah has just asked in relation to the NASCAR and also the small aircraft flights over the Outer Banks. Are you better to book them in advance, or if you're driving around and you're flexible at dates, can they be booked locally?
The NASCAR, if you want to do a ride around in the 2-seater race car, then I would suggest trying to book that before you go, because that is very popular. The light aircraft over the coastal region, no, you can probably, there's quite a lot of companies doing that, so you can pretty much turn up and do those flights without having to pre-book it. Like anything, it pays to pre-book if you can plan your itinerary well enough, but certainly with the light aircraft flights, you'd be okay.
Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, there's so much when I just think about North Carolina, but I won't. I'll stop now and move on. So next up we have, going just under North Carolina, is South Carolina, and we have Shannon with us this evening. So hi Shannon, where are you? There you are.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us all the way from South Carolina this evening. How are things there? Are you having sunny weather today?
We are. It's definitely, we're in the midst of spring right now. A little cooler today, still, light cool breeze, but we've had everything from already up to 85 degrees down to 55. So that's sort of time period where the weather's swinging a little bit back and forth right now, but overall it feels like spring.
Excellent. So it's nearly as nice as it is here. I wish. And of course I have to ask the obvious question, how are things going in South Carolina in regards to vaccination progress? I know when we last spoke, things were going very well. I presume they're still moving in the right direction?
It is. Our governor just opened up the vaccine to everyone over the age of 16 as of yesterday in the state. So there's a new round of registrations going on. I've already had my first shot and waiting on the second one. I'm supposed to have it on April the 15th. So wow. Looking forward to being fully vaccinated, and hopefully we'll be welcoming people back before we know it.
Definitely. Well, we can't wait to get back. Absolutely can't wait. Okay, well, I'll let you get started. You share your screen. Just remember to tick the 2 boxes again that we talked about earlier for the video, and we will talk to you again in a couple of minutes.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to everyone about South Carolina today. And it is, in a lot of ways, very similar to North Carolina in the fact that it is has 3 sort of coastal regions. And we cover everything from the mountains to the coast. As Kiara said, I am Shannon Odom. I'm the international manager for South Carolina, and I've been in this position for a little over 2.5 years. And biggest thing is South Carolina is open, and we are receiving visitors. We have been open really under different phases for the last 4 or 5 months as we roll out new restrictions more than anything. We started out, with heavy restrictions where restaurants and bars were closed. Then we rolled back to restaurants and bars could open to a certain amount of time. And then they've now released that to where all of our restaurants are back open to 100% capacity. We are now allowing live music venues to reopen, as well as movie theaters. And we also have attractions that are open. Most of the business owners are still basically keeping guidelines in effect. We still have mask ordinances in effect as well. So people are still wearing masks, even though the vaccine rollout is going very well. So as we go forward, just know that we're ready and open, and hopefully welcome you back to South Carolina soon. This is some of the most recent data that I just pulled from 2 days ago. We had 344 new confirmed cases, which is way down from our previous highs of over 2,000 back earlier, even in January. We're really looking at the percent positive rate, which right now, as of yesterday, was 5.7 of the total tests taken. So we really are trying to keep it at that 5% mark. And as was mentioned, we have a couple of programs like the Palmetto Priority and the South Carolina Stay Strong campaigns, which are really encouraging visitors to follow guidelines as well as businesses, just to make sure everyone is safe. Just to give you that brief look, we are south of North Carolina and situated right just next to Georgia as well. We have major airports, including Charlotte, as Duncan mentioned, as a very easy access point to start an itinerary that goes through the Carolinas and on into Georgia. So you can also fly directly into Charleston and Greenville, Spartanburg, and really Myrtle Beach and Columbia, where I'm located. Today, I'll just touch on 5 reasons to visit South Carolina, hopefully enticing you to ask some questions and think about a itinerary that goes through the South. Really, geography is the biggest thing for us. As a small state, relatively, we cover a lot of ground. We have the mountains in the upstate, as well as the Midlands throughout the central part, which includes our lake and river districts. And then along the coast, really, we have a beautiful marsh setting that goes up and down. So we really enjoy all 3 areas of the state. We have 47 state parks featuring mountain terrain to ocean terrain. Starting in the upstate, there's the beautiful Table Rock State Park. There is also miles and miles of hiking trails that you can visit. This over here is towards Oconee County, which really gives you that lovely view of the foothills of the mountains. The highest point in the state is Sassafras Mountain at 3,400 feet. We also have waterfalls that reach up and down the mountain areas. Just over the border really is some of the highest falls east of the Mississippi. And so people really don't realize that some of the highest point and the highest waterfalls are just in our area of the South. We have, as I mentioned, miles of trails. We have the Palmetto Trail, which covers the entire length of the state. It starts in the mountains and goes all the way through the Midlands down to the coast. We also have the 70-mile Foothills Trail, which goes along the sort of the Blue Ridge Escarpment, which is really the dramatic rise of the Piedmont to the upstate. And then this is a picture of Greenville, which is a great base for that area. So if you're looking for some mountain access, I would recommend Greenville. Has a wonderful downtown Falls Park and a bridge that goes over the Reedy River. We also have a river system that goes through the entire area, including the Chattooga River, which is a national wild scenic river. It was the first river east of the Mississippi designated that. We also have the Congaree River, which runs right through Columbia, and that is a national park. It's our only national park in the state, and there's some beautiful canoeing and kayaking that you can do in that national park. Then there's the coastal area of Charleston, which has the Ashley and the Cooper River, where some people really think the Ashley and the Cooper meet to form the Atlantic Ocean. Moving down to the coast, we have 32 miles of beaches, or 32 beaches, I should say, over 2,800 miles of tidal coastline, including some wonderful state parks like Hunting Island, which has the only state's public lighthouse that you can visit. There is Brook Green Gardens, which is over 9,000 acres of sculptures and fountains and gardens that you can visit as well. There's the Cape Romaine National Wildlife Refuge, which has miles of uninhabited islands that you can visit. And then there's Myrtle Beach, which is a very famous family destination. And then there's Wild Dunes Resort, which is just north of Charleston. So a good option of beach areas. Then there's also our culinary scene, which I really enjoy. If you think of the South, you think of freshly caught seafood. Some of our culinary staples are a Brunswick stew. And then you also have fresh okra gumbo, which is sort of an African-American inspired food. And then also the barbecue, which we have here all along the South, but particularly in South Carolina, we have 3 types of sauces, which are well known. There's the mustard base, then there's the tomato base, and then there's a vinegar-based sauce. So you can choose all three depending on which area of the state you're in. We also are very well known for our famous shrimp and grits. So when you're in Charleston, you have to order a shrimp and grits dish. We're home to James Beard, award-winning chefs and restaurants, and plus there's a number of breweries and distilleries located throughout the state. This is a picture of Rodney Scott, one of our barbecue masters here in the state. And then up in the foothills of the mountains is Chattooga Bell Farms, which is an orchard which you can visit and pick fresh apples and also take a tour of. And as I mentioned, there's distilleries. Moving on, there's our sports scene here in South Carolina, which is top notch. We are home to the first golf course in America, which was located down in Charleston. And we are currently the site of the upcoming PGA Championship next month. We are allowing limited spectators out at the venue. This is the shot of the ocean course at Kiowa Island, which is where the major championship will be played. They'll be allowing about 10,000 spectators in a day. Myrtle Beach is also well known for its golf. This is Barefoot Resort. And then speaking of NASCAR, we also have one of the oldest NASCAR races in the South, or in the country really. It's the Darlington 500. It's at the track that's known as It's Too Tough to Tame, and that occurs every Mother's Day weekend over in Darlington. We also have the Volvo Open, which is a WTA family tennis event, and it has been ongoing. It started down Hilton Head in the early 70s. It moved up to Charleston in the early 2000s and has since become a great event every April. It will be held this year spectator free, but you can catch it on the Tennis Channel and probably one of the BBC or one of the European networks. Horse racing is also big in the South. Moving on, since I don't have a lot of time left, just to touch on the brief history that we have in the area. Of course, we're well known for our Revolutionary War history. We had over 200 battles that were fought in the state during the Revolutionary War. So you can take the Liberty Trail, which will take you to 30 historic sites. There is the Fort Sumter, which is where the first shots of the Civil War rang out in 1861. So you can learn all about the battlefields and forts and even a submarine. We also were well known along the coast for our Gullah Geechee heritage. We had some of the first freed slaves in America that were in a settlement called Mitchellville. Mitchellville Historic Freedom Park is an area that you can tour and learn about the Gullah history and how the freed Black man prospered in the South. The Penn Center is also a well-known site on the historic rights, the Civil Rights Trail. This is where Martin Luther King Jr. prepared some of the plans for the early civil rights movements. He felt very secure out on these barrier islands in the South, and you can actually visit and go study some more about this at the Penn Center. There's the Benjamin Mays House, he was the head of the Morehead College, which is where Dr. Martin Luther King went to college. So Dr. Mays was a really early mentor of that. Charleston just celebrated its 350th anniversary last year, and it's just a lovely city to visit, very pedestrian friendly. And the last thing briefly I'll touch on is our music history. We are the birthplace of the Shag and the Charleston. We have the soundtrack of South Carolina, which includes Dizzy Gillespie, Chubby Checker, and James Brown. And currently right now, Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish, in his own fame, is our current South Carolina tourism ambassador. He has started in the last year and is continuing this year. We have festivals, historic venues, all types of bluegrass and jazz. So we just really enjoy it. And when you're ready to discover South Carolina, we are ready. And thank you very much.
Oh, I love that, Shannon. I know I'm going to say it after everybody, but I'm sure everybody's looking. I just want to be there. It just looks fabulous. And I know from the few bits I've done, it is that gorgeous and it is that nice. And those pictures don't even do it the justice that it deserves. So I'll let Paula get on to the questions, but I have one question that came in that came in on the question box. And I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but if anybody else knows the answer, they can put it in the chat box. Did Pádraig Harrington win the PGA in Kiowa Island in the golf? Number of years ago?
He did not. That Roy McIlroy won.
There you go. Okay, so whoever asked that, I can't remember who it was I'll check it again in a minute. And whoever asked that, then there's the answer. There you go. I'm only a learner, so I won't even pretend to know who won what. But one thing's for sure is the golf is just oodles of it. And I know we've arranged golf trips for people before where they can play a number of courses and kind of do it at a relaxed pace. So, I mean, you have so much choice, don't you?
Plenty of options. 350 golf courses in the state, up from the coast to the mountains. So really all types of terrain are available for you.
And they're not all crazy money either. Sure, they're not, Jan. Obviously the higher end ones will be, but you can play reasonably enough. Oh,
for sure. There's, over 100 excellent golf courses that would be easily under 100 pounds. So it's, very affordable for the average person. But obviously, if you want to upgrade one day, you can spend a little bit more and splurge. But there are many affordable golf courses here that are just lovely.
You'll enjoy. Fantastic. That's brilliant. Right. Well, I'll let Paula get on to her couple of questions there.
One's come in here. South Carolina, your map showed many rivers. What is fishing like?
Fishing is wonderful. That's one thing I really didn't touch on that much, but we have right outside of where I am is Lake Murray. And then just south of us between Columbia and the coast is Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion. Both offer world-class fishing tournaments, actually. In fact, there's one in about 2 weeks out of Lake Murray, the Bass Masters, which is a nationally televised tournament. So when you have Bass Masters and tournaments like that being held, the fishing is wonderful. I would highly recommend Lake Murray or Lake Marion for that. But there are plenty of other lakes in the upstate, but you can fish, but really, really nice.
Excellent.
And this one, you touched on this, and the person, Linda, when she asked, she said that you may already answer it in the presentation. They're very keen on Civil War tours or attractions. Are there any close to Charleston?
Yes, Charleston is really the best point to start Civil War tours. There is Fort Sumter, obviously, which is right there. You can take a boat out to Fort Sumter. There are historic plantations all around Charleston, which actually have the original homes during the war. Some of them were actually burned down during the Civil War, so you can learn about that. There are actual original slave cabins. And then the lovely town of Beaufort, just south, has more Civil War history. All the way up here in Columbia, the city was almost entirely burned, but you can actually see the Capitol, and they'll take you on a tour where some of the mortars actually hit. You can still see that today from when Sherman bombarded Columbia across on the far side of the Congaree River. So a lot of Civil War history all throughout the state.
This really is something. Yeah, go on, Paula, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, I was just going to say, and the last one I have at the moment is in relation to state parks. You mentioned that there's numerous state parks. Are there entrance fees? And if so, is it possible to get a park pass if you want to visit more than one?
There is a park pass available. It is roughly $75. I would recommend, though, paying the individual entrance fee. They're really nominal. They're anywhere from $3 per person. And I think the most expensive is about $6 per person. So just for an entrance fee, if you're hitting maybe 3 or 4, it's better just to pay the individual admission. But if you're going to say 30 of them and you're going to spend a lot of time, the pass might be better.
Okay, perfect. I'm sure we can ask you 50 more questions there, Shannon, but you know your stuff. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. It was a really lovely presentation. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. We'll move just down below South Carolina now, and we welcome Della Tully and Amanda Peacock, lady. So Amanda's joining us from Georgia. Whereabouts are you in Georgia, Amanda?
I'm in South Georgia. I'm down in a town called Valdosta. So I'm about 3 hours south of Atlanta.
Oh, fantastic. And again, Atlanta's, go on ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I'm actually closer to the Florida line. I'm like 20 miles north of the Florida line where I am.
We don't know. So it's lovely and warm there today, I'd say, is it?
It is. It's a cool spring day. Like Shannon was saying, we had a cool front come through. So it's a little cooler today, but it's beautiful.
It's only going to get nicer as well.
That's right.
Fantastic. And I suppose just a very similar question just to you about how things are going in Georgia vaccination. I know you and I had a call a couple of weeks ago and things were flying along as well. They're doing well.
Very similar to what Shannon just said. 16 years and older are eligible for the vaccines now. So things are moving right along with that. I've had my first, just like Shannon, and we'll get my second one next Tuesday. So hopeful that will continue and we can open arms to you guys soon.
Oh, and we'll be running. We'll be swimming across the ocean. Myself and Della will be swimming together. We're getting over there as quick as we can.
I'm on that first.
Okay, well, Della, exactly. Okay, well, Della, welcome you again. Everybody might recognize Della. She has joined us the last couple of evenings as well. So Della and Amanda have pre-recorded their presentation because they were in sync earlier this week, and they decided to do it. And then I'm going to show the video and then I'm going to show the presentation, but the ladies are here for the Q&A after, and they'll be here at the end as well. Well, I know, Amanda, you might have to leave us, but we're here for questions straight after the Georgia presentation. So fire through the questions and any experiences, and I will share the screen now. Okay.
Hello, everyone. We are going to give you a whistle-stop tour of Georgia. So this is where we are in the heart of the American South, as it says on the slide. Our neighbours are the Carolinas to the east and northeast of us, so North and South Carolina. To the south, we have Florida, and also obviously states like Alabama to the west. Also north of us, Tennessee. So we are really well connected to a lot of other states, and we do know that quite often people will visit more than one southern state at a time in one trip. They might do 2 or 3 or even more of those states. Amanda's going to tell you a little bit about the regions on the map.
Yeah, so as you'll see on the map, the different colors, we do have 9 regions that we've got the state divided into. But I think the most important thing to note is just how diverse we are, that we have really dynamic cities, which we'll tell you about. We have a 100-mile coastline, we have great small towns, and we have a mountain range and some beautiful mountain communities.
So where do we start? We start in Atlanta, which of course is such a big gateway, world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson. And really this is the area where most people will head to as a tourist. It's the Olympic Park. This is where the Olympic Games took place in 1996. And down here, you've got 3 big attractions. So you can see there, beautiful in the summer months, or actually spring, summer, fall, where the fountains are there. But on the right-hand side, you've got a picture of the world of Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola was founded in Atlanta. They're very, very loyal to the brand. You will not get Pepsi Max in many places at all. And this is where you can hug the Coca-Cola bear, obviously in normal times, non-COVID. You can taste the different types of Coca-Cola. It's not all the same. It does differ depending on where you are in the world. You can watch a movie all about the history of Coca-Cola. You can go to an IMAX theater. It's a great attraction, and one of the key things that one of the key brands Atlanta is known for. You also have the Georgia Aquarium. We're the #1 aquarium in the US. This is all very close together. These 3 attractions, the World of Coca-Cola, the Georgia Aquarium, and the Center for Civil and Human Rights, are walking distance from one another. The Georgia Aquarium, absolutely excellent, has a brand new extension for their whale shark exhibit there. They already had the whale sharks, but now they have an even bigger exhibit for those. And on the right-hand picture, the Center for Civil and Human Rights tells the story not only of Martin Luther King Jr. And the US civil rights movement, but civil rights movements around the world. It's a really fantastic interactive museum. I don't really want to call it a museum because that makes it sound a bit stuffy when it really isn't. You can really kind of get a handle on that entire story there. Also, the Civil Rights District in Atlanta. On the left-hand picture, this is the boyhood home of Martin Luther King Jr. It's also in this area that you're going to find his church, the Ebenezer Church, and also his grave site. This is a National Historic Site, so a kind of a ranger takes you around the boyhood home, and it's a really must-do area of the city. On the right-hand side, you have the Atlanta Beltline, and this is kind of historically kind of part of the old railway route around the city, but it's a 22-mile route around, which includes all kind of different neighborhoods. It's a great way of getting out in the open. There's plenty of parkland. As you can see in the picture here, you can bike, you can skate, hike, walk, run, whatever you want to do, but it will let you see bits of the city that you wouldn't normally see if you're in a car. On the right, you can see the Ponce City Market, which is one of mine and Amanda's favorite places because it has lots of food outlets. It's the old Sears building, which they've converted into this amazing retail and food building. So lots of different food stalls, fine dining. There's a rooftop area where you get amazing views of the city skyline and you can have a cocktail. It's a really, really cool place to go in the city. I'm going to let Amanda tell you just a little bit about the Porsche driving experience.
Yeah, so over on the left, you'll see the Porsche driving experience. Porsche established their North American headquarters in Atlanta just several years ago. And so this is a great attraction, not far from the airport, from Hartsfield International Airport. So great way to get in a Porsche and drive around, unless you're Della. We won't let Della do it.
Yeah, they've yet to let either Amanda and I go actually out there, which is probably a good move.
Over on the right it's just an example of some of the shopping there is in Atlanta. Atlanta has a ton of great malls and various places to shop, from high end to, as Della likes to say, the multi-story Target that we all love so much. So tons and tons of places to shop and spend money in Atlanta.
So we're going to move on to Savannah. Savannah, kind of known as one of the jewels in the crown for Georgia. It's around about 4 hours drive southeast of Atlanta. It's also about the same distance from Orlando. So those who know Florida really well, if you head north from Orlando, you will get a completely different experience. You'll hit the Golden Isles of Georgia. And as I said, four hours from Orlando, pretty much a little bit over that, you will find yourself in Savannah, a really historic city, 22 squares, founded by the British, one of the last colonial cities to be built, and fought over between the British and the Spanish. This is a typical scene. This is Forsyth Park. In virtually every square there is a park like this, and it's just the kind of quintessential Southern experience that people look for, that Spanish moss draping down. Just a great place to eat. You know, you can take, as you can see here, a horse and buggy ride. You can get out on the water, on a paddleboat steamer, enjoy art galleries, museums. It's all one big historic district. Very, very easy just to park your car and go around without driving. Totally recommend it, and it's one of my favorite places. Just another shot. This is Wormslow Historic Site in Savannah. Again, one of those kind of iconic views that you want when you come to the south. Tybee Island is 20 minutes across from Savannah, kind of linked by a causeway, linked by a bridge, and it's just a really, really cool place to go. If you want to just chill out on the beach, you have literally got it within 20 minutes. This is where the last big Baywatch movie was actually filmed here, but it's really low key in Tybee. It's all about low-rise buildings, no big billboards, very uncommercialized, unspoiled, you know, just a really, really nice place to relax. I'm going to let Amanda tell you a little bit more about the Golden Isles, which is about an hour and a half south of Savannah.
So we mentioned that we do have a coast in Georgia that we call the Golden Isles. It's about 100-mile stretch of protected coastline. And like Della said about Tybee Island, here you won't see high-rise buildings and tons of condominiums. It's a very different look than many of the beaches we're used to seeing in other parts of the country. Obviously food, we keep referencing our food, but we're definitely known for our seafood on the Golden Isles, specifically the wild Georgia shrimp. So we will convince you to eat some shrimp and grits when you're here. We'll teach you all about it. And then over on the right, that's one of our iconic spots on Jekyll Island, which is a state park beach. That's Driftwood Beach, where all the literally driftwood is up on the shore of the beach, and you can walk under it. You can hang your hammock from the trees and relax. It's one of the most peaceful places I've ever been. In Jekyll Island, as we mentioned, it's beautiful and protected as it is a state park. So you see the boardwalk out over the marshes on the left. And then on the right, one of our most beautiful and iconic hotel properties, the historic Jekyll Island Club Hotel. It really takes you back in time and is one of the most beautiful hotels that we have. Again, some more of the Georgia marshes that you see. St. Simon's Island, one of our 15 islands, is pictured up on the top right-hand corner. And on the bottom, another one of our crown jewels, Cumberland Island National Seashore, that you can get to only by ferry. It's another super protected island, but a great place to tour. And they even have wild horses on the beach that you can see while you're there.
So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some more great outdoors. As you know, we've got a lot of it on the coast, as Amanda mentioned. You know, don't forget, if you are in Florida, you've done Florida before and you want somewhere different, just head up north, and you know, you will hit the Georgia coastline, which is so special. The great outdoors we have in the mountains, of course. A lot of people don't think of us having mountains, but we are the start of the Appalachian Trail. So the North Georgia mountains, this is where that 2,000-mile mountain trail starts. And you can get the cheesy t-shirt that says, you know, you've hiked the Appalachian Trail when actually you've just stood on the very first part of it. But as you can see from these pictures, also on the left hand side here, just amazing fall color as well. Not to take away from New England, but we have beautiful reds and oranges. Obviously our fall starts a lot later because we're warmer, but you can just see those reds and oranges. And as well, obviously, just to mention, at this time of the year, that beautiful cherry blossom. We have a cherry blossom festival in Macon. Just some more shots of the great outdoors. Providence Canyon, which is like our little Georgia's Grand Canyon. We have almost 50 state parks, and you can do everything in them that you would expect to do in a national park, with the hiking, the biking, kayaking. On the far right is Okefenokee Swamp, and it's just this huge wetland area. You can kayak or take a boat tour, see alligators, all kinds of wildlife. And just to mention, obviously, we have historic homes. This is Pebble Hill, which is kind of like a hunting lodge, and just kind of one of those iconic things that you want to see and do and visit whilst you're in the area. And not forgetting our wine. We have wine and craft breweries everywhere. Obviously, that's always kind of one of the things people want to do and enjoy whilst they're on holiday. And I'll just let Amanda finish off and tell you something a little bit about the music and the film.
Oops, I was muted. Georgia does have a long-standing music history, as Della mentioned, and Ray Charles from Albany, Georgia. Many people know the iconic legend Ray Charles. Tons of music history in Macon with the Allman Brothers, the B-52s from Athens, newer classic hip-hop artists coming out of Atlanta. So tons and tons of things to see and do around music, and also film, as Della mentioned. Avengers and many of the Marvel movies have been filmed in Georgia, are being filmed in Georgia. The Walking Dead, The Hunger Games. So tons of things to see around the music and film industry.
And you can do a whole tour, like we have a Georgia movie trail with a like #1 feature film producer. We have a whole Hollywood thing going on in Atlanta. So, you know, a lot of things that you perhaps didn't know were filmed in Georgia are filmed in Georgia. So you'll notice our little Georgia peach on a lot more movies now. You probably know this. But
That's
thank
right.
you very much for your time. We'll need to end there because we could just carry on talking.
That was great, guys. Thank you so much. I know, again, you could talk forever about it. There's so much to say and do, and all things Georgia. I'm very going to quickly touch on something that one of the biggest sellers we have, Amanda, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, and Della, is the Golden Isles, and twinning that with something. So very often we'll have people do a drive, maybe coming down from the Carolinas down into Savannah and finishing the Golden Isles, or they'll come inland, or they'll go to Orlando and come up to the Golden Isles. And it's a perfect place to go as a twin center. So if you've done your parks and you're coming up, and what I love about it is everybody thinks beaches, Florida, beaches, Florida, beaches, Florida. But for this evening, remember the coastline on the East Coast, and also remember the coastline that the guys are going to show you for the Alabamas and Mississippis. But it's so untouched and it's so quiet. And even Jekyll that you spoke about, Amanda, they have an ocean club as well, don't they? Which would be good for families.
Yes, they do. The Jekyll Island, the same hotel has a property on the beach, the Jekyll Island Ocean Club.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good for families. I just wanted to make sure to clarify that. And yeah, the other thing I was going to say about a winter destination, but I think Paula has a question about weather there. So I'll let you take over there, Paula, about the questions you have.
Yeah, I have a question in here. There, you touched on the cherry blossoms and also the Appalachian, the walking the Appalachian Trail. Is there a best time to visit Georgia, or is it just a different experience depending on what time of year you go?
I think it's probably just a different experience based on the time of year you go, but our climate is relatively mild, spring and fall. Summer gets really hot, but we know that about the South. So fall is beautiful. As Della mentioned, the fall color is really lovely where we are, but spring's also beautiful too. So yeah, even winters are typically mild for us. So
it's an all year destination. How far is Orlando?
She broke up there. How far is Orlando from from the state of Georgia? It depends where you're going, really, doesn't it?
Depends where you're going. It's a little over 3 hours to the coast. So like to the St. Simons, Jekyll, Brunswick area.
So you could comfortably drive from Orlando to the Golden Isles if you wanted to do your theme park and then do your beaches. I think it's an awful sin not to take in Savannah or something else while you're there, but
yeah, I agree, Kira. I think the nice thing about it is if you were coming up from Orlando, you know, and then like you say, you know, spending some time in the Golden Isles and then up to Savannah, the contrast between Orlando and Savannah is just huge. As you know, we all know and love Orlando, not to take anything away from Florida. You know, I've been many times on many vacations with my family, but I think it's just such a great way of seeing two completely different destinations. You know, we all want bang for our buck, don't we, as an international visitor? So you know, it's just an absolute contrast, because Savannah is that old colonial you know, historic city, and then 100 miles just head up north from there and you know, you're in Charleston. So you know, yeah, from Savannah to Charleston, again, if you're interested in history, you've got two cities that are, you know, really close together, particularly for people that are into the culture and the history of the region.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. Have you another question, Paula?
I do. You've mentioned Georgia's music heritage. For fans of the band REM, is there a tour you can take around Athens that takes in some of the locations and inspirations behind their songs?
Yes, they actually have a great walking tour that starts at their Welcome Center there in Athens, and it takes you on to some really cool spots in Athens. And actually, one of the spots is where one of the REM covers was photographed. So yes, absolutely, the Athens Musical Heritage Walking Tour, I believe it's called.
Brilliant. Okay, and you can sit on Forrest Gump's bench. Isn't that correct?
You can absolutely sit on Forrest Gump's bench.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you, ladies. That was really, really good. And thank you, Amanda, for tuning in all the way from Georgia this evening.
Thank you all.
Send some sun our way if you can, please.
I will.
And hope we get some Irish accents back over your way soon.
Me too.
And thank you, Della. That was really good. Really, really enjoyed that. And we'll move on now to the next one. So next one is going to join us is Peter Hannaford from Arkansas. And we're thrilled that Arkansas have really started launching out and showcasing this state internationally, because it's something new to them, to the Irish market, to invite them over. And I have learned so much in the last couple of years from Peter and his partners about Arkansas, and that there's so much in this state to offer that it should definitely be on everybody's list, especially with the Dallas flight. So Peter, I'll hand it over to you, and I'm going to let you share your screen there, and just make sure to tick the boxes for the videos as well.
Absolutely, thanks, Karen.
Okay, no worries, and I'll just mute him then.
Okay, here we go. Oh, is that working?
Yeah, I can see it now. You just need to make it big. Do you want to stop? Yeah, you tick the boxes, yeah?
Yeah.
Brillo. Go for it. Thanks.
Is that working?
Working everything. I can see it there. I can't see the big screen. I can still see your slides on the left.
I can too. So let me see what's let me
bottom right hand
corner. Let me just stop here in a second and try again.
We won't talk about you, I promise.
Okay. Is that working? No, it's not working.
I can see that. Yeah, no, down the bottom right hand corner, just press the bottom right, yeah, that button there. Yep, you're over it, over right. There you go. That's the one.
Fantastic. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
Thanks for helping me technically challenge there. So yeah, thanks, Kira, for setting this evening up. It's fantastic, and thank you to everybody for taking the time to join this evening. As Kira said, Arkansas is relatively new to the international market, but I think there's a lot to offer, and we're going to spend the next kind of 5-10 minutes just running through all that Arkansas has to offer. And by the end of the presentation, hopefully you'll understand why we call it the natural state. So let's start off, and we're moving away from where we've been up until now, which is over on the East Coast to the kind of very west of the region. And Arkansas is very, very much, though, a southern state. It has some influences of the West, being located next to Oklahoma and Texas, but very much a southern state, with all the attributes that come with the South in terms of music, culture, cuisine, and the like. So that's where it is. And like Georgia and the Carolinas, the Ozark has its own mountain region called the Ozarks, and very, very similar in geography to the Appalachians, as you'll see in this image. Has its own mountain culture. It's very strong in mountain music. And heritage and culture. Arkansas's kind of east state lines actually comprise the Mississippi River, and you'll see it running down there through Tennessee, Mississippi, and where it butts onto to Arkansas. And that's known as the Delta region. And that's typified by kind of vast fields of cotton, levees up against the river. And wooded lakes, as you'll see here, very typical of the region, that Delta region. I haven't got time to go into all the wonderful things that there is in Arkansas. We're just going to pick out a few kind of highlights. We're going to start with Little Rock. Little Rock's the capital of Arkansas. It's not a huge capital, about 500,000 people, but it's got a great downtown area. It has its own streetcar system, some great restaurants and bars. But a couple of the highlights in Little Rock, one will be the Bill Clinton, the President Clinton Library, Clinton Library. Bill Clinton was governor in Georgia in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's from Little Rock where he ran his campaign and eventually ended up becoming the 42nd president of the United States. And this library really showcases the history of his time in office, and there's some great artifacts and letters and memorabilia around that time as well. So very, very, very much a kind of a modern, up-to-date public library to showcase him there. The whole of the South, and you'll see this probably from some of the other presentations, has a very strong civil rights history. And Arkansas is up there amongst any, and you'll see here on the right-hand side is the Little Rock Central High School. And in the 1950s, this was a whites-only school, and it became the focal point in the late 1950s of the campaign to desegregate education in the US. It's now actually a national park. And there's a fantastic little visitor center, and the rangers actually do a tour of all the various sites that were involved in that struggle, including a tour of the school. It's still a working high school and has 3,000 students, and you can only get into the school as part of one of those tours. So that's Little Rock. And then we move on to Dice up in the northeast of Arkansas in that Delta region. And prior to 1930, Dice didn't exist. Dice came about because of, in fact, Dice is actually called Dice Colony. And it came about as a result of Roosevelt's New Deal after the Great Depression. And what he did was he created these types of colonies, and he gave dirt poor and destitute people, and in this case from the south of Arkansas, $100 and 10 acres, and gave them an opportunity to improve their lives. Now, it's an interesting story in its own right, but of course, one of those families was the Cash family. And so Dice is the location of Johnny Cash's boyhood home. And the great thing about Dice is it's only 40-minute drive from, oops, sorry, wrong way, 40-minute drive from Memphis. And so you can drive out in the morning at 9 o'clock, tour the small museum that there is in Dice, head out across the fields to Johnny Cash's boyhood home, take a tour, have lunch, and still be back into Memphis mid-afternoon. So it's a great side trip because a lot of the other rest of the southern tours that you'll do will take in a lot of Johnny Cash significant places that he was. Is in Johnny Cash Museum in Nashville as well. And this fits in nicely as part of that kind of musical history background. And then we got to Bentonville, and Bentonville sits smack right in the middle of the Ozarks, right in that northwest corner. And you'll see here there's a store here called Walton's Five and Dime, and Walton's Five and Dime was started here in Bentonville, and then it grew to other Walton Five and Dime, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and eventually it became Walmart. And so Bentonville was the birthplace of Walmart, which probably most of you have been to the States, have ended up in a Walmart at some point or other. But here is where it all began. And this particular Walton's Five and Dime sits on the very pretty town square in Bentonville. And it kind of outlines the history of Walmart, and in particular, its very charismatic founder, Sam Walton. Very, very much worth a visit. Now, Bentonville, the Walton family are still in and around Bentonville, and as you can imagine, they're kind of richer than God, and they pump a lot of that back into the town and around, and they've built this amazing state-of-the-art American art museum called Crystal Bridges, and definitely worth a visit. Okay, so now we move on just to the south west of Little Rock is a smallish town called Hot Springs, and just as it says on the tin, it grew up because of the warm thermal medicinal waters of the springs that came out of the ground in the area, and people came from all over the country to avail themselves of these thermal waters, and until the mid 1920s, there was a whole row of bathhouses had sprung up, and very cleverly was named Bathhouse Row. But it's a wonderful architecture, and it sits on an avenue there. You can't quite see it on the left-hand side, but it's almost Mediterranean in its look and feel. Funnily enough, Bathhouse Row is also owned by the National Park Service. And the ranger there will give you tours of the history surrounding Hot Springs and Bathhouse Row. Hot Springs is also famous because this was neutral ground. This is where gangsters from New York and Chicago came in the 1920s and 30s to get away and relax and temporarily at least stop to have worrying about evading the long arm of the law. There's even a gangster museum on Main Street, and this is the Chicago Club picture on the right-hand side, and this is very evocative of the type of bar that was in place in and around that time. I think it actually started in 1905, ahead of the gangsters being there. But yeah, it's a fascinating little town, actually. And and now what we're going to do, we're going to have start a video for you, and in about a minute and a half, it's going to show you a lot more than I could possibly cover. But again, I think you'll get a feel for what the state has to offer and how it fits in with the rest of the South. So here we go. So there you go. Anyone noticed there that there were actually vineyards? Who thought there'd be vineyards in Arkansas? But there you go. We're quickly, very, very quickly going to finish up and just show, and I think Della mentioned this, and it will be brought up. I mean, people visit the South, tend to visit multiple states, and so this is an example of the way you could come through Arkansas. Kira mentioned Dallas, and my understanding is that I think American are bringing back the Dallas service in July. Dallas up through Arkansas into Memphis, Nashville, and down through Atlanta. And then perhaps even start Atlanta, go down through Alabama, New Orleans, up through Mississippi, Arkansas, Nashville, and out of Washington. So you've got another option there, and maybe start in New Orleans and head up through rural Louisiana, rural Arkansas, and do some of those towns that we've mentioned. End up in Daleisco through Missouri, and then kind of end up out of Chicago. So. Lots of ways you can do it, and the world's your oyster with the South, really, with all those various options. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions that you have. Thanks.
That's brilliant, Peter. Thanks a million for that. That's great. I have to say, I love looking at that, and I love hearing more and more about Arkansas, because we just don't know. It's one of those states that we just haven't learned enough about over here yet. And I know that's what you're working tirelessly to do, is to try and get the word out there. What would you say is the biggest misconception about Arkansas that it's stereotyped for? Because clearly we can see there's a huge amount to do on every level.
Well, I think, it comes across, I mean, obviously, I think you see the video there, it is very outdoorsy. I think people think that it's kind of a maybe agricultural kind of waste bowl that doesn't really have much else kind of going for it, and it's anything but that. Might be true for perceptions on other states as well, but certainly Arkansas has. I was very surprised in terms of when I first went and visited, how much greenery and natural assets it had.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, from our few conversations, you've kindly supported us at Holiday World Show as well. We've had loads of interest in it, and that's growing. It's one of those states you kind of have to just keep that away, get the message across. But it's a fabulous state. And just there is a hot springs drive you can go and explore all the hot springs and kind of make that as your theme to your drive if you wanted to as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, they actually have to cool those hot springs. The water that comes out the hot springs is actually too hot.
Really?
And so they actually have to mix it with cooler water. So I don't think they're going to run out anytime soon.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize. I thought they were just cold hot springs. I didn't think they were actually that hot. So there you go. You learn something new every day. Right, Paul, I'll leave it over to you. See if there's any questions there.
Yeah, there's some coming in here now. I have one here. Arkansas seems to lend itself to RV holidays with the beautiful outdoors and scenery. So somebody's just asked, are there many facilities?
Yes.
If they do hire an RV for many facilities.
Yes, they do. And what's particularly useful is the state parks are very geared up to accepting RVs. So there I don't know the number, but literally dozens and dozens of state parks. So that's where you would be best fixed. But the mountain towns as well, like Eureka Springs and Bentonville, are geared up for RVs as well. So it's a big thing that they do in the state, and motorcycling, motorcycling, just touring the roads and the mountain routes is very, very popular.
A motorcycle's paradise, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Paula, another one.
Next question is: are there any upmarket resorts or hotels in Little Rock?
In Little Rock, well, the most upmarket is there's a Marriott right by the river. It's an upmarket Marriott. It's a 4-star Marriott right on the river.
Excellent.
And Neil is asking, and actually this is the question I've often wondered myself, why is the state called Arkansas and not Arkansas?
Oh, you don't want to be saying Arkansas in Arkansas. It apparently comes from French. That whole kind of area just above Louisiana had a lot of French influence at one point, and so it takes its pronunciation from a French way of saying it.
Good. Yeah, there's an answer for everything. There you go. That's brilliant, Peter. I'm sure there's lots more questions. Have you
Yeah, you touched on Walmart and the shops. Are there any shopping outlets?
Yes, there are dotted around. Just outside Little Rock are the main ones, but that's where you really find them. Other than that, it's probably by far the largest city, and yeah, Little Rock would be the place to go for that.
If you have to go to the Walmart first, though, that'd be brilliant. Actually, have a look at that. I'd love to see.
Well,
why not? While you're there.
Well, actually, just outside Bentonville, they have what they call a testing Walmart. And anytime they want to change anything with any Walmart, because all Walmarts look pretty much the same, anything they want to test out, they test out on this Walmart that's just outside of Bentonville. They want to change the width of the aisles, for instance, they'll try it out on that one first.
That's gas, isn't it? Amazing things. And last thing, just before we finish, there's one comment there from Carolyn saying, thanks for telling us about Dice and the Cash family home. I met Johnny in June in an earlier life, brackets showing my age. Lovely people, just added this to my next trip. So that's a lovely comment. So there's one more, Peter. That's one more person. We're getting there.
Exactly.
I know, that's brilliant. No, I have to say I'm really liking everything you've been showing us about Arkansas. So thank you so much for giving up the time to do that this evening. I think everybody enjoyed it. Now, so we have Neil Jones and Viara Chalier have joined us to do the last section of tonight, which is the Deep South USA. So what we're going to do is a slightly different format here. I'm going to share my screen first of all, and then I'll let the guys take over. So here we go now. I still have Georgia up. I need to get rid of Georgia. Sorry, Della. And let's be right. Okay, so we have Viara and Neil are going to look after this for us. Make sure I tick my boxes so we can see the videos. Sorry, lads. I did grand. And here we go. And what we're going to do is I'm going to hand over to them. I'm in control of the slides and the videos here, but they're going to do the presentation, and I'll let them explain what's going to happen, and I'll hand you over. So thank you, Neil, and thank you, Viara, and off you go.
No, thank you, Kira. Thank you for having us, and thanks everybody for the interest in our region. My colleague Neil and I will have the toughest job yet, as we are really having to rush through 5 states in the time we have. But in short, we are a partnership of 5 states, and this is Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And we have a great direct flights from London Heathrow on British Airways to Nashville and New Orleans, and it's one of the best ways of accessing our region. What brings us together really is the history and the heritage, the music, the festivals, the amazing cuisine, and of course, a huge dose of good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. So from here, we're going to try and tell you a little bit about each of the states, and we're going to start from the most northern one, which is Kentucky, and with a little video first. Thank you, Kira. Well, I suppose everybody knows Kentucky mainly because of the Kentucky Derby, which does take place in Churchill Downs in Louisville, which is the biggest city of Kentucky, and it takes place every first Saturday in May. I have to tell you one thing, guys. I can't wait to see Rachel Blackmore at the Derby, because that will be something to behold. It is the longest running sporting event. in the USA, and it's known as the Run for the Rose because the official flower is the rose, and it also, of course, has its official cocktail, which is the mint julep, and it's known more for the fashion as much as the horses. Is a very special place and time to visit Kentucky. Also, Kentucky produces 95% of the bourbon in the world, and you've seen on the video Maker's Mark, Woodford's Reserve, Jim Beam's, all distilleries there for you to visit and explore. And trust me, each one of them is very, very, very different. In addition, you'll see the gangster picture here, and you probably wonder what that's all about. But Kentucky was actually the original Sin City, Newport in Kentucky, northern Kentucky. And the Tropicana and the Flamingo were here much before they existed in Vegas. In fact, a big part of the population of northern Kentucky moved when rules changed in Kentucky and opened Vegas. Also, big on outdoors, we have the biggest waterfall in the south, known as Cumberland Falls and the Niagara of the South, and as well you saw Mammoth Cave National Park. So there is a lot to explore. Over to, we are following the trail, so from Kentucky we're going to move down to Tennessee.
Thank you very much, Kira, for seeing that. Obviously, Tennessee, you know, we're world famous for a couple of things, really. Of course, Nashville and Memphis are the a real sort of the linchpin cities of Nashville. That's where we know most people are drawn in. Of course, Memphis famous has been the home of Elvis Presley's Graceland. But Nashville, really, as you carry on across, so you go, Memphis is in the west of the state, you come across to the east and you go through Nashville, and then you come up into the Smoky Mountains, which will then link you all the way through into North Carolina. But that's where you're going to find the likes of Pigeon Forge, the home of Dolly Parton and Sevierville. Earlier on, it was mentioned about RV homes and the possibilities of those kind of holidays. Well, of course, the Smoky Mountains are a great place for that, but in Sevierville, they've actually just opened a new RV park. So again, lots of great options coming up. And of course, we unified. We are very much obviously mentioned the bourbon side of things, but we've got our very own Jack Daniels, which is coming out of Lynchburg, Tennessee, which ironically until very recently was based in a dry county. So you could enjoy the tour, but you couldn't drink the drink. And we're moving on to next stop throughout the tour. So we'll be heading on down to Alabama for another quick video.
Right smack between Nashville and New Orleans, there's a musical journey you got to check out in Alabama. Come on, let's go. I finally made it to Alabama, and as a music lover, I've been waiting to come here a long time. From juke joints with blues in Birmingham to the Muscle Shoals sound way up in North Alabama, I cannot wait to check this out. I've made it to Muscle Shoals Sound Studio, the place where Paul Simon, Leonard Skinner, the Rolling Stones, legends, hit records have been recorded here. Hits after hits after hits after hits, platinum and gold all happen here at Muscle Shoals. Made it to Birmingham and I'm feeling kind of thirsty. I'm here at Avondale Brewing Company. This place is incredible and all the beers have a story. If I lived here, this is where I'd be hanging out. I made it to Montgomery, Alabama, home of Hank Williams and Martin Luther King, and today I am curious to see if I can make the connection between music and history. This is where it all started. This is the modern birthplace of civil rights. Martin Luther King preached right inside these doors. This is where they planned the meetings, this is where they planned the marches. This is right exactly where it happened.
bring in people play all over the world. We've been doing it for 23 years. We just recently won an international award, KBA award, Keeping the Blues Alive.
Yeah, and you are.
It's a little room, but it's got a lot of soul.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can feel it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can taste it. I hear you.
Mobile is full of friendly people, very welcoming. We love for people to come to Mobile.
Yes.
And Mobile is a big blues town.
I am in Gulf State Park, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I still got more to do. We're headed to Lulu's, we're headed to the Hangout. They've got live music everywhere. The band's setting up, the crowd has formed, and I'm here at Lulu's, about to hear some really great live music. Let's get it going.
Come on to Alabama, let's do it. It's the morning drive. It's the morning drive.
Made it to the Hangout. This is the place. If you want to catch live music, this is where you come. Throughout the year, there's always live music. There's always great food. And they say the drinks here are insane. It's been a beautiful experience day after day after day. It's like just a real, true Alabama experience. Next stop, New Orleans, Louisiana.
So obviously our tour guide there does that far more succinctly and more knowledgeably than I ever could. But really just to reiterate those points that, you know, the surprise, and I think Kira teed it up earlier as well. So mention the beaches. Once you're down on the Gulf Coast there, those beaches are super soft, white sandy beaches. So you can do a fly drive trip around the south and through the southern states. You don't have to then head down to Florida to get that beach break. You can take it in quite nicely on the southern parts of Alabama there. Music, something that always kind of, you know, unifies all of the states in and around the southern region. Muscle Shoals, of course, was mentioned, but also in Huntsville, they've just opened a brand new amphitheatre where they've acoustically devised it, you know, so well, and it was designed in harmony with the lead singer of Mumford & Sons. So, of course, you know, Alabama continues on down. They mentioned Mobile there, and Mobile was designed by the same architect who designed the city of New Orleans. So anyone who's been to New Orleans or Mobile will feel some similarity. And it was also the home of the first Mardi Gras as well. So again, we're unified in so many more ways than you even realise initially. And on our next stop, I think we're heading on over to Mississippi.
Welcome to a place where history and heart collide. From Memphis all the way south to the Gulf, this is the place where art got its soul, where legends found their voice, and you can find yours too. Welcome to the place that gave America its sound. This is Memphis and Mississippi. Music ties Memphis and Mississippi together, bridging the blues across the region, to show you there's something special in the water here. This is authentic America, a place that has a habit of inspiring people. Take a stroll down Beale Street, and you'll start to understand why. Musicians from all over the Delta came here to cut their chops and hone their skill. The blues grew up from the Delta soil. From the cotton fields sprang a sound that traveled the world over. It's where Lizzie Douglas became Memphis Minnie, and where the blues boy of Beale Street became B.B. King. You can relive that journey at the B.B. King Museum in Indianola and see how the blues grew into the sound that traveled the world over. And places across Mississippi, like Red's Lounge and Poor Monkeys in Cleveland, still give you an authentic blues experience where you can move your feet to the rhythm of the Delta. And you can pay your respects at Robert Johnson's grave in Greenwood, or find the spot in Clarksdale where Robert Johnson made a deal that changed his life, or at least that's how the story goes. This place inspires storytellers. Tennessee Williams was born here in Columbus. A quick look around Oxford, Mississippi will give you an idea why William Faulkner called it home. And Willie Morris's memoir, My Dog Skip, recounts his childhood in Yazoo City. Elvis Presley's childhood in Tupelo set the foundation of his sound. And when he recorded at Sun Studios in Memphis, he grew into a king. And after a visit to Stax, you'll see Memphis has a musical pedigree that can't be matched. Otis Redding, Booker T and the MGs, and Isaac Hayes were all at home here. It's a music that was shaped by this city by the river. Look around the National Civil Rights Museum in downtown Memphis. You'll understand why. Housed in the Lorraine Motel, where a king of the civil rights movement was struck down. But that tragedy gave way to a place of inspiration, and one that motivates people to live Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream today. The city rolls on like the mighty Mississippi. It's a perfect spot to find your song and your soul. And visiting the steamboats along the Mississippi lets you understand why that old man river continues to inspire artisans to create and families to reconnect. There are plenty of places where people can cut loose and come together. From parks and museums that let you step into history, and places where you can get up close and personal with nature. You can tour one of the historic Civil War battlegrounds or kayak along Cypress Creek. It's an outdoors wonderland, and it's a perfect place to experience something new. Connect to the wonder of Memphis and Mississippi. There are plenty of places here where the view will sweep you off your feet or knock your socks off. You can sink your toes into the beaches of Biloxi. It's where the ocean waves carry away your troubles and bring in some of the best seafood you can eat. Of course, you can test out some of the best barbecue in the country up in Memphis. Some of the best food you've ever tasted in between. There's a reason why Southern food is a favorite around the world. So come to Memphis and Mississippi with your appetite for a taste of real America. Get inspired. Find your song. Shake your blues away. Come on down to Memphis and Mississippi.
Well, what can I say? I can't compete with Morgan Freeman, that's for sure. But he's a huge, huge ambassador for Mississippi. And of course, you will find his Ground Zero Blues Club in Clarksdale. But Mississippi truly is the cradle of the blues and the cradle of the civil rights. And there is a great museum you can visit in Jackson for the civil rights, which is the newest and the biggest actually on the civil rights trail. Also, of course, Vicksburg. I know there was a question about the Civil War before. Vicksburg was the bloodiest battle of the Civil War, and this is where you're going to find the National Military Park. It tells a fantastic story. I mean, Vicksburg, Lincoln used to call Vicksburg the key to the South. He knew if Vicksburg falls, they got the South. Both sides fought very hard for Vicksburg. So there is a lot to see in Mississippi and a lot to experience. But let's move now to Louisiana.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine.
You come to Louisiana for smiles, not souvenirs. You come here to get lifted up, spun around, and put down in a brighter, lighter place.
You make me happy when skies are gray.
You come here for the distinctive music and the amazing food. But what really spills out of the horns and over the edges of your plate is joy. Some people might call it joie de vivre, the joy of life. In Louisiana, it's our way of life.
You'll never know, dear,
So come live life to the fullest, where there's an abundance of good food, good music, and good times. So there's more than enough to go around. Come one, come y'all. This is Lauren Daigle inviting you to come feed your soul in Louisiana.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine. Please don't take please don't take my sunshine away.
That was the wonderful Lauren Daigle there, covering obviously one of our amazing state songs. But
Sorry,
you know,
Neil, I skipped the slide. I'll go back for you now. Apologies.
just going to make me start all over again.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So as I mentioned, yeah, so one of our state songs there, You Are My Sunshine. But what you're going to find down here in Louisiana is geographically and just in appearance, it looks very different to a lot of the rest of the US. We are swampland, we are wetland, so you know, we don't have those mountain regions, but what we absolutely have is lots of great open spaces of waterways and areas and bayous that you can go out and canoe and kayak. We've got the amazing plantations where you can visit and really learn the history of America. But yeah, it's a place where people go to have a good time. And with our Cajun and Creole history and heritage, we can say, you know, safely say we've got a different cultural blend and something you're not going to find everywhere throughout the US. We work in harmony so well with our neighbouring states that, you know, Peter's talking about names of cities that you pronounce in a strange way because they're French pronunciation. But once you put the Cajun mix into that down in Louisiana, you get some crazy names. You wouldn't even begin to be able to mention how to pronounce them. But yeah, come on down, and it's it's all about having a good time. It's like living life to the maximum in Louisiana.
Excellent. Okay, that is fab. Let me just get the next page up there now. No questions, and I will stop sharing. Okay, brilliant, Neil, Viara, thank you so much. I think that was the perfect way to do it with the videos. It really worked, didn't it? I got such a warm feeling about them, and I think finishing with Louisiana, and that wasn't even really planned with the music of the Louisiana one, but it actually kind of just gave us all a bit of a mellow feeling, I think, at the end. So it was fab. I have one or two questions, and we're any general questions can come in now because all the presentations are over. So we'll have a couple of questions and we won't keep everybody too much longer, but just a couple of things. One question that I got earlier on, and I know it's about Alabama, so I know the answer myself, but I'm going to throw it out there just in case there's anything I don't need to know. You can walk across the Selma Bridge. Somebody wants to know, are they allowed to walk across the Selma Bridge? And I had a client last year or 2 years ago who asked the same thing, and we did actually organize a private driver to bring him to Selma and walk across that famous Selma Bridge. Have you any further information on that from Alabama or your counterparts there? People have done it as part of a tour or do it themselves?
Absolutely, yeah. It's I mean, it's an intrinsic part. It's one of the most famous elements of the civil rights movement, and it's something. Obviously, the film that was out a number of years ago obviously increased the popularity of people wanting to go, and you know, those that wanted to walk in the footsteps of their sort of forefathers and things like that, but also those that want to kind of, you know, really sort of encapsulate the spirit of the movement.
Yeah. It's so iconic down there, and there's so much history in each part of the state as well. And the other question was about music studios as well. I forgot to mention that this is Muscle Shoals in Alabama, so which I was very lucky to be in once, and thoroughly enjoyed it. You can tour the studios, can't you? In the various.
You can, yeah. You can do the studio tours, and I mean, Fame Studio is the most famous one. But it's, I mean, for anyone who kind of knows their music history, you know, the words, was it Keith Richards who did You in Rock and Roll Heaven, Baby? Those words were uttered in the toilet stand of one of the studios in Muscle Shoals. So it's, you know, anyone who was anyone back in those days, and right up until the likes of Alicia Keys recently, recording and cutting records up in Muscle Shoals. So they say there's something spiritual in the water. So it's it's a place to behold.
Excellent.
Actually, it's part of something we call the Golden Triangle, because of course you have muscle shows, and then you have in Tennessee the Studio Bs and Sun Studios, and traveling around and seeing them all you pretty much see studios that anybody you can think of recorded in. It's amazing experience.
And Viara, don't you have country music, blues music, jazz music? Like there's so many different types of music, and then bluegrass music and all that.
Bluegrass music from Kentucky, yes, absolutely. This is what brings us together. We all have quite a lot of different music experiences, starting from the bluegrass and down to the jazz in New Orleans, passing through the blues in the Delta in Mississippi, and all the recording studios, and of course country music in Nashville. So yes, lots of music.
With the heart of America's music, and I don't say that lightly. It really is a hotbed of musical genius, I think would be fair.
Is the songwriters documentary that they made, that's out now to the public, isn't it? Can people get that? That's an amazing documentary. It was about an hour long, and it was a songwriters documentary. I must get the name of it. We saw it a couple of years ago at one of the conferences, and it showed about how they write country music. It was all around Nashville. It was I'll get the name of it, but it's definitely worth seeing, and I'll put it up as a post.
Fantastic series on country to country that takes place, which are all the writers' editions in London, country to country, and the documentary was based around that idea. Is absolutely fascinating. I mean, usually here few writers come and run the series over 2 nights and talk about how they came up with that song, because a lot of them actually don't sing their songs. They give them to other people to perform. Yeah, they don't perform the songs, but yeah, it's definitely worth seeing.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks, Yara. Thanks, Neil. Right, Paul, I'll let you fire off a few questions there.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of them there. I have 2 quick ones, and then we have a general one.
You're breaking up a bit, Paula. Oh, she's broken up. I think
everybody as well. So the first one is we actually do the Derby packages for Kentucky. The joys of Wi-Fi. Am I there?
Yeah, you're there now. Give it a go.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. Somebody was just asking the packages. We sell the Derby packages for the Kentucky races and etc. But if they're visiting the US, are they difficult to get if they just decide at the last minute that they want to go to one of the races?
Right, so the Derby isn't the only race that takes place in Kentucky, of course. To go to the Derby just off the wing is very, very difficult, because everything sells out very, very quickly. But racing season in Kentucky starts in April, and it runs till June. And then you have September and October at the end of the year. It's extremely easy to buy a ticket. And if there isn't a race running in Louisville and Churchill Down, there will be race running in Lexington, in Keeneland, which is on a historic track, and also an auction house where they auction all the thoroughbreds and also can visit during the auctions, which takes place in September. Very, very easy, extremely friendly crowd, and a good day out, 100%.
Excellent. The other question I have is about Mardi Gras. We've somebody say that they've heard it's quite crazy. Is it worth the visit, or is it quite mad?
Definitely worth a visit. So there's 2 ways to answer this one. Mardi Gras is it's a bucket list item. So many people have it on their list of things to do. I've been fortunate enough to be in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. It is mad. It is crazy. You have something like 2 million additional visitors come into the city for Mardi Gras. So yes, definitely worth doing. The flip side of that is if you want to see New Orleans as a genuine version of New Orleans and the way New Orleans normally is, do not go at Mardi Gras. It makes it very difficult to get around. The city is difficult to navigate, and it can be hard to get restaurant reservations and things like that. So my suggestion, if you want to experience Mardi Gras, do Mardi Gras in some of the surrounding cities. Head to Mobile, feel the vibe over in Mobile in Mardi Gras. You can go to Lafayette and experience Cajun Mardi Gras, which is very different. Any one of the cities is celebrated throughout Louisiana Mardi Gras. So, you could do one of the early days and the early festivals within New Orleans, and then head out and experience Mardi Gras throughout the region, because it is an entirely different experience. very, very family orientated in the other cities.
Perfect. And the next question I have, it's actually for everybody. Neil has asked, could each of you mention one new major visitor attraction that will open in each state in 2022?
That's a great question to finish with, actually, as well. So we'll get an answer from everyone. Great question, Neil.
So I jump in. I'll answer with. I'll cover 3 states here in a couple of those. So Louisiana, we've extended the Civil Rights Trail of Louisiana, which will join up to the National Civil Rights Trail. And along with that, there's the 1811 Slave Revolt, which is the Great Slave Revolt, one of the biggest revolts of the movement. That's probably the biggest new thing happening in Louisiana. For Alabama, they've got a ship called the Clotilda, which they discovered, and it had been preserved underwater in the land of Alabama for many years. The Clotilda was the last slave ship that came into the United States of America and was sunk as it arrived into Alabama. Now, the flip of that is all those that were on the boat were then disembarked, and they ended up making their own home, really. And it's a really strong story about the sort of success over adversity in Africatown, Alabama. And then the Tennessee, I can't believe I'm even hearing myself say this one, but it's 5th and Broadway would be the biggest new opening. That's right in Nashville. It's going to be massive for shopping, which is not what I do personally when I'm on holiday, but also there's a lot of live music venues and eateries and dining and those kind of great things. So 5th and Broadway would be the biggest opening coming in Tennessee. That's my 3 and done.
Shall I jump in as we're just kind of going across the screen? So for Kentucky, something I personally really want to visit is on my bucket list. But the Fresh Bourbon Company, which is the first African American owned distillery ever, purely African American, and I think that is really a big step forward, and I personally look forward to it a lot. And then for Mississippi is the aquarium of Gulfport. I mean, what a best place to put it, because you are right there on the water and you can see all the kind of native species as well as some of the usual species in aquarium, but a good new attraction coming in. And the Amtrak, which is connecting now New Orleans and is opening again for passengers. So if speaking about different way of traveling, and I'm sorry because that's the third attraction, but it is a train, and it connects now from Mobile to New Orleans and passes Mississippi. So a great way to see the coastal kind of parts of the states.
That's actually really good, because a lot of people don't want to drive. So it's actually really, really good. That I'm glad you said that. So don't feel guilty about the thing. It's not at all. Who wants to go next? Who has another thing? Della, will we fire at you?
Yeah, we have something called the Illuminarium, which is opening up actually this summer, or at least it's on schedule to open this summer. It's at the Atlanta Beltline. I'm not sure whether you remember the picture that I showed you of the Beltline, the Pond City Market. So just south of there is going to be where the this Illuminarian experience is, and it's kind of like this virtual experience, and it's not open, so I haven't seen it. There are going to be they're going to be across the world. There's another one coming out in Vegas apparently, but it's where you can kind of be walking through a safari and it's all going on around you. And the nearest thing I think it's going to be like is like Fremont Street in Vegas, you know, when you've got it kind of going on above you, and like this immersive experience. And yeah, it's actually due to open this summer, hopefully.
Excellent, brilliant. Thanks, Della. Duncan.
Sorry, yeah, so I mean, with nothing majorly new for 2022, we've a couple of new exhibitions going in some of the art galleries. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. And then there's a really cool light exhibition going on at NCMA in Raleigh that's new, and it's a permanent exhibition. And then there's something a bit different at Carowinds, the theme park. There's going to be the longest mat riding slide in the Southwest, at just over 90 feet. So like the old Helter Skelter where you're in a mat, but it's like 80 to 90 feet. Something a little bit different there.
Absolutely. Something for everybody. You know what? That's a random thing to know, but you know what? You never know. That'll be
You
just
never know
great.
when you're going to need it.
Absolutely. Brilliant. You can try it out for us first.
I will.
Yeah, let us know. Brilliant. Okay, Peter.
Yeah, in Portsmouth. Portsmouth's right on the kind of western, it's halfway up Arkansas on the western state line. And back in the kind of mid 1800s, there was no Oklahoma. That was the frontier. And it was the town where all the marshals would base themselves, and they go off, and that's where all the criminals and bad guys would go off into the frontier and hide themselves. And so Portsmouth was the frontier town. So 2022, they're actually opening the US National Marshals Museum. And it's going to be in the state. It's going to be built or it has been built already. Started anyway in the shape of a marshal star. And it's going to be fully interactive, and it's going to tell you all about all the most famous marshals that kind of existed and what they did and what the roles of marshals were. Because most people just think that they're policemen, but they're far more than that. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting, I think.
Brilliant, absolutely. Yeah, another piece of American history that we just wouldn't have known about otherwise. So excellent. And then by last but no means least, Shannon, we'll put you on the spot for the last highlight that's going to be there for 2022 when we get there. So no pressure. You got to end strong here, Shannon.
Thank you. Yes. Well, Duncan mentioned the Carowinds, which actually does sit on the North Carolina-South Carolina border. Half of it sits in North Carolina, half of it sits in South Carolina. So that Fury, the tallest giga coaster in North America, is scheduled to open. And then down in Charleston, there is the International African American Museum, which is scheduled to open in 2022. This will sit right on Charleston Harbor next to the aquarium, and it will tell the story of the African American journey across the Atlantic during the slave trade. So it will be an immersive exhibit. I'm sure quite emotional, as of course Charleston was one of the major ports for the slave trade. So this really will pay homage to that and to sort of tell the story of what Charleston and the Old South is about and sort of bring that together. So we're really looking forward to that. That has been in the works for fundraising started over 10 years ago. Then they had to find the perfect place for it, and then the concept of the building. So this will all open next year in Charleston. So I think that is really the highlight for us for the state.
Definitely. As you say, probably a very emotional one as well. So fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, all I can say once again to all of you, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know we're nearly at the 2 hours, but we covered 9 states, and I think you all did amazing. So thank you. I know you're all tired and it's late, and you've been working all day. So I would just say thank you to you all again. I'm just going to put up a last thank you slide. Sorry, actually, very quickly, briefly, we have a number of tailor-made fly drives. I can't believe I forgot to mention these. Obviously, all over the USA and all over the 9 states that we did this evening. These are just a couple of sample prices of various states, and they vary depending on what standard of accommodation we're using, and unique places to stay, and obviously flights to different destinations vary. But whatever you saw tonight, we can combine and we can put together for you. So if it's the Derby, if it's the North Carolina cross horsepower state, if you want to do the state of Arkansas, South Carolina, Georgia, whatever it is, we can do it. And they'll all include, whether it's RV or flights or car hire, just give us a shout. These are just some sample prices. But same with the escorted tours. We've picked just 2 escorted tours there, which have loads included. And anybody that was on our night last week, where we had Brian Hines from Inside Vacations and Luxury Gold talk about escorted touring and guided vacations and how they work, you might be interested in this. These are just 2 that we picked to showcase, but again, call us, email us, and we'll show you lots more, and we'll follow up with everybody anyway. And finally, it's just to say thank you for joining us. To all our guests this evening, I cannot thank you enough for giving up your time. And it wasn't just this evening, there was a lot of prep that we spoke about and had Zoom calls about during the week. To all the other guests that we had over the last 7 nights on the inspirational evenings, it was a leap of faith to do this. And we are really glad we did, because we all need a bit of escapism at the moment, and to be able to inspire you even just a little bit, to show you something you maybe didn't think of before and get you dreaming for 2022. If we've done that, then we've done our job. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving up your time. And we really look forward to looking after you in the future. And I would just ask the panelists to stay on for a moment or two if they don't mind, and the attendees, you can sign off now. But thank you very much, everybody. And thank you all the guests.